The brilliant British Beatles arrived on the world stage in the 1960s. And all these years later, their story and their legend still enthralls visitors to an exhibition that has been in Bangkok on a tour of Asian cities. The man behind this collection, Jeffrey Giuliano, is an authority on the life and times of the Beatles.
I started this when I was 15 years old, and I'm 54, so that's an awfully long time I'm a professional fan of a popular, but I've justified it by writing all these books and doing, commercial ventures. I've done something like 20 spoken word audiobooks on the Beatles as well, and I have a radio show called Jeffrey Giuliano's Roots of Rock in 200 markets in America, so I've spun it into a cottage industry, but it's getting a little tedious at this. When I'm 60, come back in 10 years, we'll be talking the same thing.
But the point is that the Beatles do have this enduring appeal for so many people.
And let me tell you why I think that is, because they're a natural phenomena, and they sort of sprang fully grown from the earth and did exactly that, and they did it in their way. And I'll tell you another thing that's very interesting to me about the Beatles is that Frank Sinatra was always Frank Sinatra. Elvis Presley was always Elvis Presley. But the Beatles, not content to be who they were, and when they created that incredible mold of success for themselves, continually evolved and completely threw out their multi-million-dollar world cataclysmic images and personas to become something else, and then after that something else and something else, and even their looks, their music, everything about them changed. They evolved. You know what I say about the Beatles is that, and of course I'm in a position to know something about this, is that each generation amazingly, magically seems to have a little spot, a Beatle spot in their heart or mind or both, that they reserve for some affection or some kind of connection with the Beatles. And little kids, buy my books and come here, and I'm always surprised. And I had a man here who came to the show, and he was Indian fellow, and he says, well, I should go now. And I said, well, why? He said, I'm getting a little emotional. And I said, why? And he said, well, the Beatles. And he had a little tear. I saw he had a tear in his eye. And it just is something, it's magic. And you can't really explain magic. Is unexplainable and inexplicable. So it's just a magic, wonderful thing that happened in this world, and continues to endure, predicated on the fact that their music is forever, evergreen.
That was a pretty big change they underwent when they got involved with the Maharishi, though.
And drugs, that came at the same time. And, this is a consciousness expansion trip. John Lennon said that, what do you do when you're 23 and you've got everything? You've got every car in the garage, and every chick will do anything, and you have entree to every level of society, and you're 24. You have to find some meaning. Beyond that. Bob Dylan said, you find out when you reach the top that you're on the bottom rung. So they needed something in their life. They needed something that was bigger than them. Imagine that, something bigger than them. That's not easy to find. So they went to LSD, they went to consciousness expansion, both chemically induced and naturally through meditation with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and they came out of that the better. They came out of that the better, and it broadened them. And they all said that, and all the Beatles meditated and probably still meditate right up to this day. John Lennon said it's like cleaning your teeth. He said it's just something nice to do. Just before George died, he went to see the Maharishi. After Paul got married to Heather, he went to see the Maharishi. So they're still in touch, and they're still involved with that continuing evolution, as we probably all should be, with evolving and refining our consciousness. Rod, I'd like to introduce you to Avalon, not only my daughter, but my literary collaborator.
How do you do, Avalon? So this has become a family business, it would seem.
Well, yeah. I'm the only family member doing it now, so took over.
Which is your book? Which is your book?
This one, right here, Revolver.
Secret History of the Beatles.
It's the entire biography before they were born and after some of them have passed away.
So did you find surprises when you delved into their past?
No, because I grew up with this stuff. Basically, I've always said I've had 5 fathers, because if it wasn't for the 4 Beatles, I would never get to go to school or travel around the world. So,
yes, it was financed, wasn't it? Yeah. By and large, by those. Very kind of you, boys.
So really, those are my 4 dads, really.
I'm very impressed by the number of books you have here, Jeffrey. This is quite an extraordinary development.
I wrote, I'm not sure, I think it's 37, but it's maybe 32. I haven't counted them, but it's way more than this. This is all I could fit in the suitcase from America. My house in America is filled with them up to the rafters. So if anyone needs a cheap book.
Avalon, what is your favorite Beatles song?
Whoa.
I hope you have one.
I can tell you my favorite Beatle is George. Oh no, I got my favorite Beatles song is John Lennon, You Got to Hide Your Love Away, from the Help album.
Right.
Do you still have a favorite?
From Help. What other 20-year-old would know what album that was from?
The Beatles too were into music from an early age and had the good fortune to meet by chance and develop their distinctive sound and approach to classic pop music. Just to see one of their guitars from the 60s is to recall an amazing era.
In reference to the memorabilia that we see here, this is interesting, this piece in particular, because it was intended that Andy Warhol would provide the artwork for the Imagine LP, and towards that end he took these and several other photographs. I left a whole tube of them at LaGuardia Airport, and they were taken away by the bomb squad one time. I lost those, but I do actually have these two images left. Obviously they're worth a lot of money as they were taken by Andy Warhol, and interesting too in that they were supposed to be for the Imagine album but not used. I'd also like to point out to you this piece, which is an autograph of John Lennon. In and of itself, there's not so unusual. There's autographs of John around, although they're increasingly more valuable. These are interesting, and some ones I have over here, in that I found them after going to an antique shop and buying a whole stack of Beatles photographs. And I'm very familiar with all of the Beatles' handwriting, in particular John, as it's the most valuable. Turned it over, and there was about 4 pictures in which John had clearly written his name and where they were and the date and so forth, and other people didn't pick that up, you see. I was just getting out of university, I think, and I met a fellow who had done some work for John, and he had several of these sheets, and I boy, I'd like that. And, well, it's $75. And I said, well, that's a little steep, but okay. And now it's probably worth a couple of $100,000 or more.
Is the exhibition well received?
Surprisingly so. And also the milieu of the crowd. They were in tuxedos, you know, sponsored by Lexus. And it was a kind of a different thing for me than we would have in America, being an old hippie. But yeah, it was really well received, and the people were singing along with the band. And as I said, everybody has a Beatles spot. And you just have to push that button and they're there with you.
Where can you go with an exhibition like this?
Around the world. First around Asia, we've got a tour lined up of China, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Shanghai, and then we're going to take it to Singapore and the Philippines, and then kicking and screaming, I'll probably take it back to the United States and tour it there, and also Europe.
And you've got a few more Beatle years in you, I trust?
Oh, I hope not, but that's why I'm training Avalon, because I must. I told her, look, I'm going to put this thing in the computer, and then I'm going to Pattaya, you know? I'm out.